I said what I feel, what is my experience, and I wanted to create a conversation. I'm very deliberate in the way that I language. Very little comes out of my mouth that I don't plan, don't execute extremely thoughtfully, and so I'm here for it. I'm also here to listen. Do you know what I mean? It's like I'm here to learn myself. I don't have to be right, but there is zero chance of me deciding to do something different. There's zero chance of me backing down or trying to clarify what I meant. I meant what I meant. I said what I meant. It's that simple.
Emma Grede just said there is zero chance in her backing down or clarifying anything that she said, but she's here to listen. When she said she does not have to be right, but she's not backing down, why are you here and what are you listening to? The whole point of listening as a leader, hopefully, is to test your hypotheses, test your theories, and then with new data, you hopefully evolve. But Emma, in her bravado, is saying she's not here to do none of that. She's here to let you talk, listen to you, and continue the way she's going. So that's that on that. Grab your coffee, water, tea, whatever you're drinking. Go and get that, and let's talk about Emma Grede and her book in particular. Start with yourself. All right, let's do it. Emma Grede is getting dragged. She is on the media circuit right now, and she is getting dragged for filth. This is why.
I have the best advice for women in business. Get your fucking ass up and work. It seems like nobody wants to work these days.
And what I think is that work from home culture is a career killer for women. And let me explain to you why. Remembering that I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women that work for me. Now, what is happening is that we talk about all of this sort of upside of Zoom culture, but none of the rigidity of it. And no one will really tell you. But careers require proximity and visibility. You want a pay rise? You want the next promotion? You want the big corner office? Guess what? You need to be there. You might not want to hear it, because it might be comfortable in your living room, but the facts are the facts. And I'm not here to sugarcoat information or to load women up with toxic positivity.
So you almost feel like it's a way to also...
It's eroding the potential for women to be successful.
Interesting.
Period, end off. Your boss won't tell you that because they're not allowed to tell you. The way we have built human resource culture in this country and the rest of the Western world is that no one can have that conversation with you. But the truth is the truth. Just is. If you're not there, if you're not in the room, there is going to be somebody else that is. And guess what? Like, they will get that opportunity over you. This is not about like whether or not these things are true or properly understood or whether they're right, quite frankly. Because I know that for some people, they're like...
I think it's interesting, and before I give my commentary on what Emma Grede had to say, and someone called her Emma Greedy, and look, if the name fit, it fits. I think it's Fashion and Politics, I think her name is. Actually just got introduced to her content and I really like it. Anyway, I find it interesting that Scott Galloway said the same thing in a more generalized sense, and it went off without a hitch. No one said anything. If you don't believe me, this is what Scott Galloway had to say.
The second worst thing to happen to young people is remote work. 1 in 3 relationships begin at work. This is where you find friends, mentors, and mates, and especially young men need the guardrails of a workplace.
Now, if you're saying, Themis, I did not know Scott Galloway said that. I believe you, and that is by design. Scott Galloway is a man. And when a man tells the public, even women and men, to go to work, there isn't the kind of visceral reaction that is evoked in us that makes it go viral and start weeks-long, days-long, months-long discussions. And I do think there is a kind of misogyny that exists within the social media sphere. I don't think this is what is animating all of the discussions around Emma, but I do think it exists. And I think it's easier to drag a woman than it is to drag a man. I think people find it more acceptable to tell a woman to shut up, for example. I also think it's funny because Emma's version of go back to work, you women, is not as broad as Scott's is. Actually, Emma's is very specific and it's a very as applied statement as opposed to Scott, which is telling everyone that they need to get their lazy self back to work. Now, before you guys get any ideas, I am not, repeat, I am not in support of Emma and her statement. Particularly in this kind of climate, what I hope to bring to the discussion is some nuance, but I mean, a lot of people have already talked about the specific statement, so we are going to talk more generally about Emma Grede's philosophy and her book, along with a bunch of her interviews, because I think isolating that one clip is not going to do us any good right now because so many people have already dissected it beautifully. So, I think the best way to think about Emma is she is a woman who wants power. Now, I do not buy her lean-in feminism. I don't believe she wants other women to have power. I don't believe she wants women of color in particular and Black women specifically to have power. I deduce this by her business alliances that are the majority, let's say, of her kind of public exposure. That is, the Kim Kardashian brand and the Khloe Kardashian brand. Her alignment with the Kardashians feels very specific while lecturing Black people and Black women in particular about them not working hard enough and them needing to pull themselves up by the bootstrap. When I say she wants power, she is going to admit this openly in her book, that women should want power and she wants power and she's going to justify this wanting of power. I have no problem with anyone wanting power. My issue is not the wanting of power, but it is what you want to do with said power. I do not believe for a second that Emma is about to use power accumulated to change the system. In fact, she is an enforcer of said system. So if you are sitting at home right now and you're thinking, well, capitalism in the way that it has existed has marginalized a bunch of people and there is an underclass that exists and it has become a kind of permanent underclass, upward mobility looks hard, don't think for a second Emma Grede is attempting to gain power to make any kind of equity or equality happen. It's not about to happen, even for women. Emma Grede's book, Start With Yourself, is... Well, first of all, it's being recommended by Oprah, and Oprah is telling us that we need to read it. Forbes has named Emma one of the richest self-made multimillionaires in America. The woman is zipping it and zoing it. Her brand of lean-in feminism is more refined than Sandberg's, and more refined in a very specific modern way, where it is very influenced by Oprah Winfrey. It is the esoteric mixed with capitalism. It's the you can manifest money, but you have to also work for it. But there is this sense that if you think it, you can be it, and if you can be it, you can do whatever you want in the world. It's the whole esoteric nonsense that exists within the Oprah sphere. Now, for those who believe in this, I am so sorry to tell you, manifestation ain't never worked. Okay. For those who believe in this, I'm not going to tell you manifestation ain't never worked. Go look in the mirror and tell yourself you're a billionaire and see what happens. After the 10th day, come and report back to me, and then we'll talk. But if you believe in manifestation, do you, girl, period. Period. Emma, in her discussions with Oprah, is going to tell us what her book, Start With Yourself, meant and why the name is the name.
And Start With Yourself, which is just such a perfect title. When did you know that that was the title?
I love that you say that. My working title was Without Apology. And I decided that that couldn't possibly be the title because it gives you the connotations that you need to, there's something to apologize
Yes,
for.
yeah.
And so to me, Start With Yourself was everything because it's about not blaming anything that's happening on the outside and knowing that everything that you do, all the success that you have and all the hardships that you have and the way that you choose to walk through the world, it all starts with yourself. So when I landed it, I was like, that's it. That's the one. And I like the way it looks.
I
love
the way it looks. and I love the way you designed the book.
What we can gather, and throughout this book you will see it, is that Emma, at least outwardly, is telling us that she believes in a kind of radical self-ownership and accountability. She's expressing ideas that everything in your life, success or failure, begins with you. You are the cause of your experience. Now, obviously, we are going to ignore children born in poverty because obviously Emma is going to tell them they just need to manifest some more when they grow up. Emma is also keen on the idea of an internal locus of control, which is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, most research indicate that people who have an internal locus of control do better than those who have a kind of external locus of control where they believe the world happens to them and they cannot influence the world. So at bottom, I think a core principle of the book is this idea that women in particular, and Black women, since she's been talking online to Black women, but women can pull themselves up by the bootstraps. Now, I don't necessarily, I'm not revolted in the way that I think a lot of people are at ideas of autonomy and accountability and really analyzing agency and an individual's ability to succeed based on individual actions. I think the biggest critique that comes up, though, is that the meritocracy that exists in America and usually in a capitalist framework is not real. It is a myth. We have discussed many times the myth of the meritocracy as a book we've read in the book club. So we understand on a deep, fundamental level that there's no such thing. America is not a meritocracy. And working hard does not necessarily lead to positive outcome. While we understand that we should work hard and do our best, we know that it's not just about how good you are. In fact, some people who are leading the world aren't good at any particular thing, right? It's about who you know and the connections you have. Now, obviously, hard work can land you in a better place, and I'm an advocate of doing your best and being thorough and think more deeply about what you want your future to look like and work towards that future. We cannot ignore the kind of systemic issues that would prevent a lot of people from moving upwards depending on where they were born. I mean, some people don't have shoes to pull themselves up by, the shoe strap. And when we think about large groups of people failing, I think we have to be careful that when we are doing analysis on a large scale, that we are also including a system level analysis, right? So if I'm talking to an individual about how they can get from point A to point B, I'm talking to that individual about how that individual under the system that we exist in can get from point A to point B. The issue is, here, we cannot make structural problems where large swaths of people are disenfranchised an individual failure, right? These structural issues needs to be addressed. Now, obviously, if you're talking to an individual about how they get from point A to point B, even in a crooked system, you're going to try to help them do it on an individual basis because you're not about to change the system generally. But if you're speaking generally, one would assume that there is a system level analysis included in the discussion. Because it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of problem-solving mechanism you're creating in your book when you don't know people's issues. The ideas espoused to a large group of people when you are telling them how to get from point A to point B has to be something that can be replicated, right? So if you can do it, so can someone else. But can those other people do it if they don't have the marriage you have, the beauty you have, and the proximity to whiteness that you have, just to name random things that I might get into later? As I was reading, Emma was talking about the fact that we cannot wait for equality and we have to go and get what we want now. I think this is a fundamental and sad misrepresentation of what is happening in society today, and American society in particular. To tell someone that they cannot wait for equality implies that they are sitting around doing nothing, and you are telling them that they have to go make it, as if people aren't actively engaging in creating a better world. Do you think Black women in particular, but women generally, are just sitting at home doing nothing? The idea that you think, and this is such a weird thing though, the idea that Emma thinks that she needs to tell people that equality is not just going to happen and you can't wait for it, so you need to get up and go do something about it, is insane. It is insanely reductive and disrespectful, I think. To be this presumptuous is actually kind of disrespectful. I think this is actually kind of disrespectful to the audience. The question of have you tried harder is disgusting and disrespectful because of how hard people have been trying. I think this, by the way, is one of Emma's biggest problems. I think she assumes she has the answer and suggests how to move from the premise that she already built without verifying at all. This, by the way, is why I opened the video the way that I did, where she said she's not backing down, she's not changing, but she's here to listen. To assume your premise is correct undermines the premise itself, because if there's new data, if there's new information that proves that you're wrong and you do not adjust, well, then your advice becomes kind of useless, right? I think I need to take a second for people who are kind of confused about my position on Emma, because on one hand, I'm like, I disagree, but not fully. And I understand that there is going to inevitably be this kind of ambiguity intolerance that is triggered in a lot of people, though I do not think my position is ambiguous, like, at all, like, not even in the least bit. I think the tendency to read ambiguous situation as threat and for people to clock out because they cannot tell if you're a yes or a no is something that we need to stop. And I also recognize that people high in this kind of ambiguity intolerance trait often feel kind of stressed out, and they seek this kind of premature closure. And I'm not laughing, it's just, it feels like people want this like black and white answer, and sometimes when we don't get it, we just click off of a video and we don't want to engage. And I implore you to continue. Hopefully I have something of importance to say. If not, you can drag me in the comments. For those who are high in sort of ambiguity intolerance, let me say this. Instead of, as it pertains to Emma Grede, what I believe fundamentally is that instead of using her massive platform to drive home the point that we need to change the work environment that we currently operate in, Emma is serving as an enforcer of toxic work environment. And I think this is wrong. that is a general statement that has a lot of nuance, and the nuance is where I want to articulate where I stand and why. And I used Scott Galloway earlier when I was talking as a means to highlight that she's not the only one who said this, she's not the first one who said this, and she definitely will not be the last one who says something like this. So I pulled two people who responded to Emma, one who agreed and one who disagreed. We're going to watch one first. I'm going to talk a little bit about that and then watch the second one and talk about that. All right, so let's do this.
Talking to you. She's not. She's talking to a very few select of women. Y'all, I hopped on Threads and I said that Emma's speaking to the 1% and baby got dragged. When I say they jumped me with their homegirls, they did. And when I said 1%, y'all, I did not mean in terms of bank account. I meant 1% in terms of work ethic. Baby, that went over their head. 1% in terms of work ethic, meaning a woman who's willing to outwork anyone to build something bigger than herself.
Shut up! Oh my God, I don't care!
That's what extraordinary success looks like, and not mediocrity, and not mediocrity, and not mediocrity, and not mediocrity. And that's exactly who she's talking to. The woman who knows the odds are stacked against her and gets in the room anyway because she has the audacity. The one that builds the relationships and dominates. She understands the power of proximity because anyone with something massive behind their name, they understand that there are seasons, sometimes multiple seasons, where they have to outwork everyone and show up any fucking way. And that's what social media does not show you. We show you the glitz, the glamour. No one's showing you the season where they had to work their ass off. And I promise you, when they worked their ass off, it was not from behind a chair. So it's like me telling a nurse or a healthcare professional, babe, you do know you're not going to reach your full potential in these hospital walls. That's very harsh, but it's very true. I want to be very clear. If a man sat on Kiki's couch and said that they had to outwork everyone and get the hell up and do the work and they had a multi-million-dollar business, you'll be on this app cheering. So let's be honest to what's really happening. This woman is showing you her financial success and telling you what she had to do to get there, being very transparent about it, and she's getting backlash. I get it. Everyone's goal is not to be the CEO, founder, the one that's raising capital, or even making the capital. That is fine. But that interview was for the woman who is building something bigger than herself. That's you. I'm telling you right now, there is so much power in proximity, presence, and putting in that work. But you gotta have that grit. You gotta have that grind. That is going to change everything. The rooms are going to give you the proximity for opportunity, inspiration, and access. My girls and I, we got our tickets months ago to see my girl Emma, to hear her speak in real time, because we are building things that are massive, that require a lot of us, but most importantly, they require transparency, work ethic. The one thing about us, babe, we're willing to do the work. The girls that get it, y'all get it.
So one of the first issue I have with this response is, when you say this is for people who are willing to do the work, is the implication that women who prefer to work from home are not willing to do the work? Because that's the implication. Is that what you're saying? But if you ask this person directly, they would not give you a definitive answer and they would say that's not what they mean. That is exactly what they meant. When she says this is for women who are willing to do the work, is the implication here that the women who want to work from home are not doing the work? Mind you, if you go and ask her, she will say, that's not what I meant, you're misrepresenting me. Then why would you say that? This is for women who are willing to do the work. The implication is very, very clear. As if women have not been working and showing up more than ever. It's annoying because this is not a willing to do the work or like showing up problem. This is a structural problem around work and how people treat work and are expected to be working. And let's be clear, the issue isn't necessarily that a boss wants you to go to work. Everyone would expect the boss to want you to go to work, right? Or at least do the work. Going to work seems odd. My issue is Emma is in a place where she has the power to change the working environment, because she will let you know she got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women.
Remembering that I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women that work for me. Now,
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women
working for her, and she could fundamentally change the way work is set up. She could, instead of addressing women going to work, address the people forcing them to show up to work. But she doesn't do that. In fact, not only did Emma say what she said in the podcast with Kiki Palmer, she actually wrote this down. Like, this is what she says on page 124. I can't teach you through a screen. If you're not with me, you won't see how I move or operate. You need proximity to me. You need to understand the flow of what's happening. She has accepted a paradigm about business that she now pushes in her own operation. This is not just someone who is just saying something on a podcast. This is someone who is writing about this and pushing a very specific narrative about women in the workplace and how women should show up in the workplace. She is enforcing a system that tells women that they need to physically be in the office. She's not just talking off the dome. This is something she's written about. This is her actual belief. For people who are going to object and say, but Demas, she's just telling you about the reality of business. This is someone using that structure to extract work through proximity to her employee as much as she can. And she's framing this, even in her writing, as mentorship. Also, this lady said something about nurses not being able to reach their full potential at a hospital. Like, what? Why can't they? Not everyone is trying to become a multi-billionaire, please. The people who get promoted aren't the people who outwork everyone. And so there is an argument, and I actually agree with Emma here, that if you want to be promoted, you need proximity in order to schmooze and move up. Like, I understand what she's saying there, and I actually agree that that is currently for the large majority of people who gets promoted in the corporate world. That is true, that they have to be there to get the beer with the boys and whatever. It is not that it is true that I'm dissecting what she's saying. I'm saying she has the power to make it not be the case, where very, very good people who are women, capable of amazing leadership, are looked over because they cannot physically be in the office. And instead of having a conversation about rethinking the way we think about value added and work completed, and really thinking about how we get work done as opposed to be physically somewhere, where a lot of people physically are in the office doing nothing, where other people are at home doing a ton of work. I think there is a way to have a more nuanced conversation about what works best for companies and employees, and do a kind of negotiation about what is actually needed versus what I would like as a boss. And also, if you don't believe me about people getting to the top not being the hardest workers necessarily, just look around at world leaders. I'm thinking about one in particular, but I won't say it here. And you will know immediately that working hard doesn't necessarily mean you get to the top, and not working hard doesn't mean you stay at the bottom. In fact, it is a lot to do with connections you have. And to the note that she made in her video, because it's very condescending, and the condescending parts of the video is what I'm trying to address. The note that she made that Emma is just being honest about her success. I guess in a way, Emma is being honest about her success. Marrying your boss might not actually be the flex you think it is, though. And in fact, Emma wrote that I met my husband at work. That's the only line I highlighted there. Is a suggestion, stick a pin. just go ahead and stick a pin right there. I'll be right back. Nah, I'm gonna do it. This is what Emma had to say on Oprah.
some of the kind of like broader cultural trends, marriage decline, the decline in birth rates, like the loneliness epidemic, you cannot like have meaningful connection with people on a Zoom call. You don't get seen and promoted from your living room. You can't be like, you know, a good flirt in a bad outfit on a Zoom, like, because no one's getting dressed into, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm serious about this. When you go out in the world, you meet people, you spark connections, you might see a cute person that you vibe with. Like, we need to be in person, not just for our professional lives, but for our personal lives. And so when I speak about work-life balance, it's because people have made it this default excuse.
I'm sorry, is Emma telling women to flirt in the workplace? It's harder to flirt over the internet, or you should be in person so you can flirt. You know this is dangerous, right? Like, we all understand telling women that they should be flirting in person. It's harder to flirt on the internet and it's easier to do it in person. We know this is a problem and that's not a good advice, right? While, again, it worked for Emma and she married her boss, not a flex, it might not work for other women. And after the Me Too movement, please don't do that foolishness. And while Emma and her husband created an empire together, he had one before, she's adding to it in meaningful ways. I'll talk about that later. I do have some discomfort about where she would be and the question about where she would be if not for marrying a very wealthy man. The discomfort in this discussion is preventing me from actually going where I want to go with it. So I'm going to end this portion of the discussion here, noting that not everyone is successful in marrying their boss who is wealthy and can invest in their business. I will get back to that again and again and again, but I need to end this part of the conversation here now. Now, on to someone who disagreed with Emma and who I agree with.
My favorite Black colloquialisms is that a broken clock is right twice a day. And that's how I feel about Emma Grede, aka that Black lady that be with the Kardashians. Because while she may have looked at the clock and discerned the correct time, the clock is still broken, baby. So Miss Stephen Fetchit has been running around in Black spaces to tote white feminism and to tell us that all we have to do is be in proximity to power in order to be powerful. Oh, you mean to do the master's bidding? Like you do. So they have told the over 500,000 Black women who lost their jobs last year that, girl, your problem really was that you was just working from home, as if it was not structural oppression, racism, misogyny, a lack of proper benefits for women who are pregnant and parenting. To have told us that the problem was we just needed to bring our male boss some cookies and chit chat beside the water cooler is what we call, once again, doing the master's bidding, but you're good at that. And if you are a Black woman in particular who found utility in her advice, go off, sis. But just know that the clock is still broken. And so the benefits that you may experience will not translate to the masses. And being the kind of person from a marginalized group who says, no, let me just explain to you the rules. Because see, I know them kind people, them white people, them men, them straight people, they told me the rules. So let me just tell you the rules, Booker T. Washington. Let me just tell you the rules, and then we just gonna be better. Why would we do that when we could just get a new clock? It's called liberation. So a lot of people have taken this situation as an opportunity to remind us that all skin folk ain't kinfolk. But I actually think it's bigger than that. I think it's also a reminder that everybody can't come. Not to the cookout. Especially not when all data point to the fact that they put raisins in their potato salad.
Now she did a longer, Hoya, fella Hoya, she did a longer video on this, but I mean, I already agree with most of this, so we don't have to get into the longer video. Okay, so this is a beautiful read, but what does liberation look like under our current capitalist framework. And I don't think Emma's advice was general. I do think it was specific to a very specific group of people. If you want to be promoted in corporate America, then you actually have to be physically there. You don't have to be, but by and large, you have to be liked. And one of the ways you get liked is by being around people who like you or who could like you. My issue with Emma is not that she's telling you about the corporate world. No. She's not doing that. My issue with Emma is her willingness to reinforce current norms. My issue with Emma is her using a megaphone to shout in people's face that they need to get up and go back to work instead of shouting at people who can hear her and can make a difference, other CEO and corporate execs that could make a change at her level, right? Instead of talking to them, we get a woman talking down to other people. And that for me is wild. My issue with her is that the things that she writes become absolutely meaningless in the face of her unwillingness to stand up when she has power to do so. Let me read this. Life is wholly unpredictable, which is also what gives it meaning. While you can't control the outcome, you can control the way you relate to and respond to the world. None of us have time to wait for equity. We have to make it. Yet, here she is with power to make a better work environment, and she just is there perpetuating the same kind of toxicity that has existed before women were able to gain the kinds of power she now has. Again, my issue with her statement is not that as applied, it is not true, because it is. Her statements is generally true. The issue here is her unwillingness to challenge a culture that takes too much specifically from women without giving anything meaningful back. And Black women in particular. And when I say Black women in particular, what I mean is this kind of intersectionality where Black women aren't just going there fighting against misogyny, right? There is also the added racism layered into that. It's the microaggression that people face, Black women, when they're walking around in the corporate environment or moving around in the corporate environment, that they are insulated from generally when they're at home in their own space, able to do their work there. Again, underscoring, in the larger corporate environment, proximity and people liking you, because proximity does not work if people do not like you, is a key in upward mobility. Emma goes on to describe women as untapped potential. I think the word untapped is actually kind of insane, because the way that women have been exploited is absolutely insane to think that women are, quote, untapped potential. Women have been used and exploited throughout history, and particularly American history. So, and Black women in particular, untapped is insane. Let me be generous and say untapped in their leadership capacity and taking up space in leadership roles. Let's say that's what she meant. Horrible way of writing it, but let's say she's saying we have not yet seen how amazing women as leaders can be, and the culture and the life that they can create and how they can move the world forward. If they're gonna do, women gonna do what Emma is doing, which is just reinforcing patriarchy and capitalism. I mean, why would we, like, do we just want women there to just be among the boys, doing what the boys do and not fundamentally shifting the culture? Like, I assume there will be women leadership. I want more women leadership because I fundamentally want leadership to look different and the world to change. I do hope more women would have the audacity to take control and lead instead of looking for male leadership a la Christianity. I do hope that. But I do hope that the way women lead is very different from the way men lead. Because if it's the same old, I'm like, what am I going to do with that? I've been talking a lot. This is just us chit-chatting. And I want to go now to the book more precisely. Emma opens her book with a very strange story. It's very revealing, let's say. I'll talk about the story in a second, but I do think it's very revealing, and Emma positions herself in a lot of ways as a feminist, but also like a girl's girl in her interviews. Yet this story onward throughout her book and her interview, Emma is extraordinarily defensive. And she attempts a lot of the time to justify some of her toxic ideas and treatment of people by shouting this kind of mantra, but men do it. It's a kind of male worship, and not a kind of. Emma is straight up male worshiping. This book, if nothing else, is bad behaviors and the kind of self-centeredness is covered with, but if a man did it, or you wouldn't care if a man did it, or she just, instead of explaining an action on its own merit, when she's questioning herself or where people are questioning her, she goes, but man, and if man. And yes, even I do this when I'm thinking about whether or not I would engage with a woman or a man the same way, or whether or not the internet would engage with a man the same way they are engaging with a woman. There is a kind of comparative analysis that we naturally do. However, there is a separate analysis that should be done and hopefully is being done, even though she does not explain it in the book and she does not do it in the book, where even if it would be different for a man than a woman, the action itself being critiqued, is it good or bad on its own merit, regardless of if a man or a woman does it. Like that's the kind of analysis you should still be doing. But she doesn't. She doesn't do this. And I'm going to give some examples. I'm going to put some examples from her book and the way she referenced men. The first one is benign, but let's read some of them together. The first one: it sounds like a stereotype, but in my experience, men have a much easier time sticking to the mission and keeping their eyes on the prize. Girl, wait. Wait. Which man? Who are you talking, girl? Let's go through some of these male worship. She is talking here, she is talking about calling in some of the execs in her company in for a random meeting. And she's talking with some of the people that she's going to meet with the execs. And the person is saying, quote, "The women are going to think they're about to get fired." Sure enough, both of the women we called in to the meeting asked, as soon as they had stepped into the room, if they were being canned, while the men sauntered in with an inquisitive "what's up?" And this is framed as a negative. Obviously, you don't want people to be anxious about their jobs, but the "what's up" is absolutely insane to me. And also, if you don't regularly do these meetings, yeah, it's going to be kind of annoying, particularly for people who like their job and might be worried about their job. Like, did I do something wrong? Am I being fired? Now, is it good to assume the worst? No. But the way this is framed is really strange to me. But that's the most benign one. Let's get into some really toxic one. Men don't get grossed out. They pay attention. Demas, what's the context? It does not matter. Okay, that's not a true statement. Men disclose deal structures, pay packages, and trade intel about bankers who are jerks and should be avoided, or the lawyers who are creative thinkers and can get any deal over the line. If you ask a bunch of women about their banking relationships, they will demur from disclosing or they will lie. What? Are we really doing these like broad generalization about women and men and the engagement of women and men? Mind you, most men don't do this. Like, this is actually kind of insane to me. All right, let's keep going. It's not lost on me that scarcity is so big for women in business because we also have few models of success. Men look around and see a world built for them, and men killing it in every industry with plenty to go around. I think they meant men are killing it in every industry with plenty to go. It doesn't matter. Also not true. Like, this sweeping generalization about men and women highlights the kind of disdain I believe that exists in Emma Grede for women and the praise and admiration she has for men generally. Let's keep going. Men see opportunity, women see limitation. How difficult it is to get other women to talk about money, but do your research and ask men. They'll tell you. No. She did an interview, and in the interview, someone had the audacity to ask Emma if she's grateful for her life. And Emma is like annoyed. This is... Emma, aren't you so grateful for all that you've done in your life? I don't feel grateful, I responded. In my mind's eye, I could see my publicist shift uncomfortably just out of frame behind me. I don't feel fortunate. I earned my right to be here. She goes on to justify this really bad behavior, which I believe is bad behavior. Even if you believe you earned it, you don't have to whatever, by saying you wouldn't ask a man that. I've seen a lot of men being asked if they're grateful for where they are and what they have, because we understand that it's not by your own merit that you are where you are for anyone. There's a lot of people who help you on the way. There's a lot of serendipitous events that took place that help to propel you to where you go, right? Like, it's a kind and humble thing to say, I am grateful, even if you ultimately believe that you did it all on your own and you didn't need any help from anyone. It was so bad. I'm actually looking at some more of my clippings. It was so bad that I stopped highlighting the male worship and I became really exhausted, like engaging with the male worship through the book. I didn't even know that I was going to use this male worshiping part because I didn't know in the discussion I would just like bring up the fact that she's a male worshiper. And I think you should know that all those clippings were not from like 1 or 2 or 3 chapters. They were sprinkled throughout the book. Like, again, I stopped highlighting while I was going through the book because of how many male worshiping examples there were. And when I'm reading, just randomly, oh, you can't see that. When I'm reading, I generally am arguing with the author. So I'm highlighting and I'm making notes in the side. Like, I am going back and forth with the author. And so my natural inclination whenever I see like male worship is to highlight it and engage with it. And it was so exhausting for me when I'm reading this book because it's literally like every 2 pages. So I just decided, you know what? I would just let it go. But just know that there is a very specific pedestalizing of men that happens throughout this book, men in business. And I mean, this is her whenever she's talking about men. This is it.
Early on in your career, you write, when I was an unseasoned CEO, the business was in financial straits. Rather than letting my direct report to know and sharing accountability with them, I internalized the pressure and then shocked everyone when we suddenly needed to cut 15 people from our 16-person team. Not only did I feel like I was going to die of shame, you entice all these people to give up what they have at other companies and join you on a journey, and then you fail them. So I know taking full responsibility sounds empowering, but it can also feel heavy too.
Yeah.
How do you carry accountability without carrying shame when something doesn't work out?
Well, you borrow from the boys, because here's the thing. Business is business.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't work out, but you can't
And
take it
those boys
personally.
don't feel any shame about it
don't
at
feel
all.
Not a sausage. Nothing.
Not a sausage.
Not
I
a
love
sausage.
I love that expression. Not a sausage.
But it's really true. And that isn't to say that we don't care deeply about people.
Yeah.
When you have to make, decisions that affect people's lives, you should carry that with some intentionality. But the point is that as women, we take these things so personally and we hold them like, I did something wrong.
Like it's your personal thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When actually it's like, this situation didn't work out over here. And we see so many men create businesses, lose hundreds of millions of dollars for their investors.
And thousands of people
and
laid
raise
off.
the next day.
Yes.
They literally go out and raise hundreds of millions of dollars the next day. And the woman is just like sent down and can never do anything again.
And you
it's
have to
like,
let go
what
of two
a
people.
disaster. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
So I actually knew in my head that that wasn't the truth. That actually that was something that we do to ourselves. And this is what I want to say to women. I think that we have to make this separation of when we're being led by our emotions and what is true. And I know that I'm a good person. I know that I run my businesses well and responsibly. And when something doesn't work out, I go, okay, I'm going to take that learning. I'm going to understand what what I did wrong, and I'm going to move on and do it differently next time. I'm not sitting here going, oh Lord, like how bad a person am I? Because I'm not.
So what would you...
So essentially, Emma is telling y'all to take on male psychopathy. Okay, Emma, girl, hear this. Ma'am, lady, you are not, I repeat, you are not a good person. And I don't think anyone is a good person as a kind of static state of being. That's not a thing. The people we call good are people who do good things. You are only a good person if you're a person who is doing good things. Saying you're a good person while doing or after doing something bad is absolutely diabolical, because what you're saying is instead of looking at your action to judge you, we should look deeper into who you are. And unfortunately, we don't have that third eye on, so we can't see deeper into who you are. We have to go by your action, and we judge you by your action. If you're a good person, you do good things. We know the fruit. That's not the saying. We know the tree by the fruit it bears. I think I haven't missed the fact that she's talking about laying people off. We will talk later about the fact that you're telling people to show up to work and love work and care about what you do and give it your all. And you're also the same person saying when you lay people off, you're like, girl, business is business. So the same people you told to give it their all and care about work and show up to the office, when you're laying them off, you're like, girl, business is business. Oh, I heard you. I heard you. I heard you. The idea that Emma just want to perpetuate what men have been doing is kind of insane to me. Here's the thing though. If I wanted to be led by a man and listen to a man, I would go find a man to lead and listen to. And I think I must disclose this now. It is my belief that men, by and large, male leadership, let's call it patriarchy, has failed. I do. I think it has failed men, but it has also failed everyone, including women and children. The new world of women leadership, I believe, should not look to copy men and toxic behavior of men. I think women hopefully have a more creative way of dealing with the problems of the world and engaging in the workforce, and not necessarily just copying and pasting what men did. And this is my fundamental problem with Emma Grede and her book. I think also that Emma needs to be able to explain moves and actions taking place without saying a man did it. No, you need to explain the action and justify it on its own merit. The male worship in this book had me sick. So, instead of talking about the male worship, I know I went on a long tangent there. Y'all probably hate this video, I'm so sorry. Let's go to the story she told in the beginning of her book. In the section entitled Anger, the chapter entitled Anger, Emma Grede wrote a story that if I were her publicist, if I were her editor, if I were her friend, if I were her friend, I would tell her to remove it immediately, quick, fast, and in a hurry. So this is the story Emma opens with, and this is definitely male behavior. This is the story Emma opens with. Ready? Y'all ready for this? All right. Emma is on her way to work. It's morning, and she is on her way to work. She is going to the train station, the Tube in the UK, and there is a woman blocking her way. And she's like, excuse me. The woman is not moving, so she's like, move! Get out the way! Anyway, she's yelling at this woman, like full-blown yelling, telling this woman to get out of her way. The woman turns to her and like is showing her like, and essentially she finds out in the moment that the woman is deaf. She cannot hear Emma. So Emma looks at this woman and go, oh, you're deaf, so are you, you're deaf, are you blind also? And pushes past her. And pushes past her to get to work in a fit of anger. Now, I am not sure who told her to put this story in. You know, like do a little cute little anger here and an anger there. And a lot of people are calling this raw. No one is calling it raw and deeply emotional. No one. I just made that up. I was thinking back at the person who was discussing this, and they kind of briefly brushed over that story. Because the truth is, without prompting, she said, she would check herself into anger management and she would work on her anger over time, saying that she wanted to keep some of that anger because anger can be good to get her to do things, and it's good in leadership, she believes, right? Now, what I got from that story, I don't think is what Emma attempted to highlight. I think for Emma, she is talking about this in a very self-reflective way where she's thinking about how she did this very bad thing, and without prompt, she actually went and got help for it. But I'm stuck at the bad thing and the kind of personality and person who would hear someone or see someone tell them that they're deaf and that they cannot hear them, and you would then ask them, well, are they blind? And push past them to get where you're going, right? The inability in the moment to reflect, like in that moment, regardless of how angry you are, that you have just insulted someone who could not hear you, and then to add insult to injury, you ask them, well, are they blind? And then push past them. It takes a kind of self-centeredness that I don't think I've ever met anyone who is like that. I'm actually kind of scared about her. I'm scared for her employees. Like, if this is still in her, if this is who she is on any fundamental level, because no human being is the worst thing that they've ever done, right? And so this might not be the thing that describes who Emma is at her core, but it does say something about who she can be and might be more than not. We don't know. And I'm hoping this was just a really bad time. It's a combination of like really bad things that one morning and she was late. Hopefully it wasn't just that she might be late for work. But I don't know. If I were her friend, I'm going to tell you, girl, absolutely not. Do not include it. Actually, don't. The whole book is a child. And again, to her credit, she went and got help if her writing is to be believed. Nah, I'm not going to let it go. I'm not gonna let it go. So, Emma, this is how male worship, this is how male worshipy I find Emma. Emma did not have the best upbringing. She grew up in poverty. It was really bad. It was single mother, 4 children. Is it 4 or 3? I think 4 children. 4 children. And the mom had to go and work. Her mom is white, dad is black. When you see the comments. When you see the comments, I said single mother, mom white, dad's black, and when you see the comments going off in the UK. She spent her teen life mad at her mother. She explains this. She talks about being in her teens, 20s, and even in her 30s, being absolutely angry with. Let me read what she says. She says, I spent my teens and most of my 20s and 30s feeling mad at my mom until I realized that not only did she do her best with what she had, but she didn't give me what she didn't have. She wasn't withholding from me. Essentially, there is a kind of resentment through this book that builds and builds and builds. And she said that after her 30s, she was able to forgive her mother. But then she goes on to talk about her mom being a good grandmother, even if she wasn't a good mother and isn't a good mother and will never have the chance to be a good mother. She didn't say that. We'll never have the chance to be a good mother, but that's what it's giving. But then she writes in the chapter where she's discussing joy, I see a dusty daddy being brought up, right? And the fact that this woman, there's no point at which I'm reading. Now, you guys can go read the book and tell me if I missed it. There's no point where she's dragging her dusty daddy. And I'm trying to figure out why is your dusty daddy not getting dragged, but it feels like slight jabs at your mother who was a single mother. But then when she's discussing joy and the need for joy and having that in your life, here goes Dusty Daddy. And I'm sitting here so you're just going to bring him up during joy. You're just going to bring him up during this. This is what she writes. Meanwhile, my father, she was talking about the fact that money doesn't bring you happiness. Money just kind of make you more of who you already are, right? And she's talking about her dad. So she talks first about rich families being sad and not happy. And then she goes, meanwhile, my father, who as a British telecoms engineer made about £35,000 a year for the majority of his life, is joyful. Well, of course he's joyful. He ain't got to raise his kids. Your mother was a single woman, single mother, raising kids, and your daddy was out there being a telecom engineer and being joyful. Of course he's joyful. He's probably smiling, going, I think he's from somewhere in the Caribbean, she wrote. Girl, of course he's happy. He ain't got to raise you and all your siblings. Probably have more kids in the Caribbean and more families all across the UK, and he ain't got to raise them. I don't know nothing about this man outside of that. He's a dusty man who didn't raise his kids. So if you didn't raise your kids, you're dusty, particularly if they're kids sitting up here talking about you're joyful. And the kind of reverence, she ultimately included, and I highlighted it, but yeah, of course he wasn't there for me. Yes, he was an absent father. He probably real joyful because he ain't got to take care of nobody or do anything. Of course, your dusty daddy is joyful. This is the male worshipping. You know what? I'm done. This is the part where I'm done with the male worshipping. Just know that from my perspective, this book is just the Bible for male worshipping. This is the holy grail of male worship, the holy book for male worshipping. That's what this is. All right, let's move on. I do think that it is important that I highlight that I do not disagree with Emma Grede when it comes to everything she writes in the book, particularly parenting. Now, this might be a tad bit controversial, so kind of buckle in and let's talk about Emma Grede parenting and why I actually really like her parenting philosophy. The idea that children should not be accidents is kind of beautiful to me. Beautiful because it highlights the kind of intentionality we would hope that when bringing a new life into the world people would have. But obviously, things happen. The issue is they shouldn't be happening. Look, drag me. Famous, you ain't got no kids, period. And every year I go back and forth into whether or not I want kids. So, period. And to the point about not liking or liking Emma Grede, Emma reminds me, ignoring everything that I said in the beginning about the things I dislike, about the way she interacts, but she reminds me in her personality and her stick-to-itiveness, if you will call it that, of a lot of my friends in uni. The girlfriends who were extraordinarily intelligent, smart, who color-coded their notes, who took notes, who read before going to class, who debated with the professors, who debated with me, who are going on now to do amazing things in life. They are extraordinarily successful because they just will not stop. Now, again, I'm currently not a parent. And every year I vacillate between wanting children and not wanting children, just going back and forth, back and forth. I'm currently in the not wanting children phase because the economy, politics, inflation. Right now I do not want kids. We'll come back to that in 2-3 years. Now, I also recognize here that I have the luxury of never being pressured to have kids. So if I do, that would just be a decision that I make for myself without the kind of societal or familial pressure. A lot of people, on the other hand, women, do not have this luxury. The pressure to have children and have them quickly or before a certain age is ever present for a lot of women, and it would be in bad faith to not point this out, that there's a cultural difference between the way men and women are treated when it comes to having or not having kids. And also, there is the added issue about caregiving, where you, if you're a woman listening to me, you, the woman, is expected to do most, if not all, of the caregiving for the child. Oh, you thought this was a partnership? Absolutely not. And to the extent that it is a partnership, the only part of the partnership that is expressed in a lot of relationship is the part where both men and women are partners in bringing home the bacon, going to work and providing. When it comes to taking care of the child, that's you. This we call the second shift. Feminists have termed this the second shift. So on one hand, things have progressed for men in that they do not have to be the sole provider in a heterosexual relationship, while the woman continue to be the sole caregiver in a lot of these relationships. And I truly appreciate that Emma Grede is not about that life. And I do actually, ignoring the pushing the person who could not hear out of her way, I do like when it comes to parenting how Emma centers herself. She prioritizes herself, her needs, what she wants, what she doesn't want, what she likes, what she does not like. She prioritizes those things in her relationship with her husband and her children, and I love that for her. In this way, her feelings and thoughts are never secondary. And a lot of people might even say she takes this to the extreme because she tells a story. She's married, and her and Jens, which is her husband, comes home from the hospital, and they're in this new parent bliss. And she looks around her beautiful home that she drew when she was a child, and her actual home looks like a replica of the home that she drew when she was a child. Like, her home now looks like that. And she breaks down in tears. She breaks down in tears while holding her baby, right? So her husband, and I'll read this part, Jens looked at me tenderly and said, "Isn't it amazing we have a baby?" Now, it is important to note that Emma is crying tears of joy, And her husband thinks that it's because she is a new mother and she has a child in her hand and it's just she's overtaken with emotions. Girl, Emma said, no. I said, what's amazing is that I drew this scene 500 times when I was a kid. Jens had bought this fancy 97 Danish console and we had a massive tree. Now, she's just looking around her home and she's like, girl, I made it, I'm rich. And her husband thinks she's crying because her husband thinks she's crying because of the child, and she's like, girl, absolutely not. Nope. I'm happy, and I'm happy crying because of how wealthy I am now. Well, more specifically, because I now have my dream life that I drew when I was a child. So that's that on that. And I love that for her. And I do recognize that for some people this might seem harsh and that she doesn't care about her child, but I don't read it that way. She's just looking at things and said, I did what needed to be done, period. And who is to say that as a mother you should be crying about having a child as opposed to crying about being wealthy? I think she gets to prioritize whatever she wants in her life. And she's gonna justify... She's going to justify, I'm going to put this up, read this. She's attempting to justify prioritizing herself and what she wants to do with her life and not prioritizing the children in her own life by using Carl Jung and explaining to us that caring for your children is important, but you need to live your life and make sure you prioritize yourself and live your dreams so that there isn't any kind of resentment towards your child and your children, rather starting to resent you because you are forcing them into your dream. And I love this. I actually do. I'm being flippant in a way, but I actually do like this kind of philosophy around parenting. And I'm gonna get deep and personal right now. After watching women after women complain about how they had to give up their dream and give up living their dream because they became a mother and they had to put being a mother at the forefront of everything they do so they couldn't get to do what it is that they would do if they didn't have children. I'm actually sad. I am sad for a lot of women, and I'm also extraordinarily grateful for my own mother. My mom went to school. She traveled the world. She started careers, changed careers, started businesses, sold business, started new businesses, went back to school. Even as a child, I was in there reading medical terms to her on flashcards that I did not know the meaning of or didn't even know how to pronounce, and watching her study and go to school and getting degrees after degrees after degrees. Cheyenne Bryant, girl, where you at? I also became fascinated with learning, with school, and even my bend towards education and liking school came from watching my mother living out her dream. And while I understood deeply that my mother loved me and my brother, it never felt like we were taking up too much space in her life. It never felt like she was sacrificing her life and her dream for us. We were a part of her life, a major part of her life, but it never felt like we were the only part of her life. It did not feel like she sacrificed being who she is and was in order to raise us, and we somehow took life away from her. And I'm sure we did. Like, we're human beings who needed another human being to care for us. Of course, we took time away from her that could have been spent somewhere else, but it never felt like that. It always felt like my mom lived her life fully and is living her life fully. And so when I was thinking about what I wanted to do with my life, of course I thought about what she would be proud of, and I care deeply about whether or not she's proud of me. But I never thought I needed to live my life for her. And I don't want to speak for my brother, but I think my brother would agree that in our mom and dad living out their best life, but let's talk about our mom, because that's what Emma is talking about here. In her living her life, it never felt like we needed to not disappoint her, even though we don't want to, or that we had to live up to some expectation for her because she didn't get to live it, so we now have to do it for her. It is a very freeing thing. And I only understood this when I saw other family members and other people feeling like they could not live freely because they had to live for their parent, or that their parent sacrificed everything for them. My mom didn't sacrifice her life for us. She gave us life, cared for us in this life while living her own, and I am so grateful for that. Again, watching my mom architect a life that she was proud of gave me permission and freedom to do the same. So I think Emma's inclusion of Carl Jung's quote was beautifully placed, and I fully agree with it. I want to point out also that I do think that there are some people who are afraid to live their dreams, and instead of trying, they blame it on parenting. All right, let me not do that. That's a hot take. That's a hot take. Please don't drag me in the Go ahead and drag me. I do believe. I think there are really talented people, women, who give up on their dreams because they have children and they use their child and children as an excuse to not try because they're afraid to fail. And they have so much to offer the world. So when Emma writes the following, I also agree with it. She says, "Can you have kids and be successful?" My answer is always the same, yes. So long as you refuse to let the culture get you, you need to resist a culture that insists you perform perfectly in both spheres simultaneously. I love that. And there are other highlights that she has, and I want to read this. I want to read this. Okay, there's a lot of reading here, but I am fascinated with women who refuse to bend to cultural norms, particularly around parenting. Men have for so long not even engaged in child rearing meaningfully. And so I'm not saying women shouldn't. I'm saying that women should find men who want to engage in child rearing and let them engage in child rearing. And be partners in child rearing. But like Emma says, I believe that kids don't need us as much as we've either been conditioned or sometimes wanted to believe. I really think that mothering need not be so intense. I know she's about to get dragged because she's a wealthy woman with a ton of privilege. So when she says something like that, of course she can offload some of her duties to nannies and other kinds of caretakers. And other women do not have this luxury. But I needed to include that. And that is true. But I don't think we should dismiss what she said. We should not dismiss it, particularly because she talks about how marrying her husband, who comes from a Swedish background where there is more gender equity, right? And with this gender equity, her husband, who is a multimillionaire and very successful and wealthy, is a very hands-on father. And so even if you don't marry a multimillionaire, you can marry someone hopefully who is engaged deeply in child rearing and do not expect you, the woman, to take care of the child all the time. So while we can try to dismiss what she's saying by highlighting her wealth, I don't think we would be best served to do that when we can change the tax bracket. And also agree that, well, maybe finding a partner, both who go out into the world to work and provide, but also in the home, provide child rearing efforts is important. I don't know. She said, "I do myself the service of not feeling bad about seemingly having more freedom than other moms who let the lead parent role default to them." Now, Emma obviously has a ton of other reasons why she has more free time, including the kinds of resource, again, to offload some of her parental duties. But if you do not let culture dictate for you how to operate, you might find that you have more free time. Force that man to raise that child. You nobody got time. And I also realize that some people will say, Themis, sometimes our children cannot be with their fathers because we don't trust their fathers around them. Fair enough. For those people, please take care of your children. For people without children, please don't have children with men you would not trust around said child. That's wild. That's wild. Now, obviously, if you find out his behavior after the fact, that's different. But like, if you know pre-child who this man is, why have a child with a like, please, don't do that. Again, I do understand Emma's immense privilege, but I don't think we should dismiss common sense advice and the common sense in the advice that is laced with privilege by highlighting the privilege. Like, sure, you can say you cannot do everything that she does, but I do think maybe choosing a better partner and not like succumbing to cultural expectations for how one raises a child might be useful. Now, I don't have a child, so I may be dragged regardless for that, but it is what it is. Emma also says the following, and I know for the people who... Now, for the people who believe that being a parent is their sole and complete identity, you're about to be sick. So she writes, honestly, parenting is not that deep. It's just not that deep. What your kids need, a lot of love, someone who sees them, someone they can depend on no matter what, moments of repair after big upsets, and guardrails. I don't have no kids, so let me know if this is right. This feels right. This feels right to me. This will, I ain't even gonna hold you. This feels right to me, but I'm sure a lot of y'all gonna say, they need more. I have to sacrifice. And I'm not, I'm not dismissing it. I just, period. Again, I'm telling you all that I do like the way she approached parenting. I do think, however, and I would be remiss if I did not point out, that different kinds of children need different kinds of attention. And so there are circumstances that require parenting to be a lot more involved than the oversimplified way it is presented here. I am assuming she accounts for this, even if she doesn't highlight it in the book, because, I don't know, common sense. It's like watching someone make rice and peas and talk about how good it is, and then you're in the comments saying, well, I can't make rice and peas because I'm allergic to peas. And you're like, okay, girl, well, don't make it. Like, if it doesn't apply, let it fly. Like, I never got time. And also, I think I should point out at this point, because if you're trad-wifing it up, this has nothing to do with you. The book is not for you. This video is not for you. This has nothing at all to do with you. So if you're a trad wife or aspiring trad wife, this has nothing to do with you. And while I do not want to be discussing trad wives, because you get to live how you want and be delusional, want what you want in life, Emma did have something in her book that I think it should be useful to say to the trad wife. And this is what Emma wrote. I can trust him, because her husband, I can trust him because I know I am taking care of myself rather than blindly relying on him to do it for me. Take from that what you will. She then goes on to say, that's why I keep a bag packed right by the door, just in case the white people that really own the place show up one time. Time to go, Blackie, she said. So she always ready, girl. She ain't never scared. Now back to the parent. That was it for the trad wife. I take from that what you think you can. I'm not going to explain it. It is what it is. Let's get back to the parenting. I want to talk about this incident that she described from her child's school. So I'm going to put it up. I'm going to put the page 64 up, and we're going to read a little bit of it. She says, a few weeks ago, a fellow school mom called me to rage about an issue at our kid's school. I let her go on for a bit and then told her I had no idea what she I had no idea what she was talking about. The parent goes, it must be nice to never really be tapped into what's happening. It was passive aggressive, yes, but it's also her loss. I'm very comfortable paying for a service and then letting the people I've hired get on with it. I learned the power of delegation. Now, obviously, you can't pay for all the services, but she was specifically talking about school and that they got what they got going on at school and she's not involved. And if it is that bad, they will figure out a way to reach her. And because she doesn't know what is happening that mother is complaining about, it got nothing to do with her. And she just went on about her life and not caring. And the passive aggressive, it must be nice to not have to care or know about these things. She's like, yeah, it is nice. And what about it? It would be nice for you too, but you're obsessed with helicopter parenting your child, and that ain't got nothing to do with me. And do I like this? I do. I essentially, I do. The parenting part of her book is the best part of her book. Now, Emma does go on to talk about not spending a lot of time with her kids, but creating moments that both her and her children will remember and not feeling guilty about the pushback around what a mother should do and be. And I love that for her. There is a part of my outline that I had something to address to the audience. I sent it to both DJ and Kilo. I will refrain from saying it here. It is important, though, that we are conscious about the decisions we're making, particularly about bringing children into the world. And if you're doing that with a partner, being mindful of the partner you choose. And while I acknowledge that Emma has a very wealthy husband and she's also wealthy, and not everyone can bag themselves a multi-millionaire, you can hopefully get someone who is a good person who will take care of the child. And at the first sign of not wanting to take care of a child, you probably shouldn't have children with that man. But I recognize also that after the fact, after a child is born, after you become parents, people change, men walk out, and you have absolutely no control over whether a man stays and be a good father or leaves. Or also stay and be a trash father. So I recognize that. But I do have a spiel that is about a page long that I'm just going to skip, because in recording now, I realize how deeply problematic it would be for me to tell anyone how to live their life. All I'm saying about the parenting part is that I appreciate how Emma lives her life. Parenting, that's it. She getting dragged across these internet concrete for everything else. But the parenting bit, perfection. And after I said what I like, let's get back to something that I absolutely despised. In doing my research for Emma Grede, she does an interview with Georgie that I cannot get out of my head. And I didn't fully understand why it was that I could not get this interview out of my head until I finished reading Start With Yourself by Emma Grede. And the quote that she makes in this, and again, this is lean-in feminism, we're talking about Sheryl Sandberg, and the quote she uses from Sheryl Sandberg is the idea that when you are offered a spot on a rocket ship, you don't ask questions, you just go sit down, essentially. And this is about taking a leap of faith and not second-guessing yourself and question whether or not you're good enough or have enough information or whatever. It's just jump on and go. The problem here is that when she's interviewing Jara, it feels like this philosophy just goes out the window, and it feels more like a lecture, a very condescending approach than it is an interview. And I have a problem with this. And I will put up front that this is my personal feeling, and I will point out why, and we'll go through it. And we're going outside of the book to go through this interview, but it is very jarring, to say the least. So let's talk about it. Importantly, I think that I have to let you guys know that I'm going to do a video on Jara. She's the CEO of Amicole. If you've heard about this, I think this was in like the 2020s, 2021, 2022. Maybe 2023 actually. But this is a makeup company that came in and everyone loved it. And for a moment you saw Amicole everywhere. Oprah even included this makeup brand as one of her favorite things, right? And so there was the kind of PR for it. There was everything you needed to start and build a company. There are issues in terms of VC and capital investment in the business that ultimately led to its downfall. We're going to have Jara talk about this, which we'll not get into in full detail, but about how she essentially had a lot of investment, and when they went into stores, particular Sephora, they were going into like 20 stores, and they were all over America instead of being very focused in areas that she had customers. So we'll talk about that another time, and I'll announce right now that I'm going to do a video on Amicole, and the video won't be about her business necessarily, but it is her goodbye letter. I read the piece that she wrote in The Cut. I believe, yeah, it's The Cut. I'll put it here. And it was one of the most beautiful, well-written closure letters that I've ever seen. And we need to talk about that letter in particular and how difficult it is for Black women to, on one hand, raise capital, and two, maintain a business and have the kind of support that they need. We'll talk all about that when we read the letter. That is coming. I am going to make that video. But let's discuss how Emma Grede approaches Jara from Amicole. And let me put my issue up front right now. This feels like Emma took this young lady and decided that she, Emma, was going to make Jara the face of failure and Jara answer for her failure. And I don't know if Jara had a wanting to be on this podcast, because after Amicole, which is Jara's business, was winding down, Emma, who was asked to invest in Amicole, rejected this investment opportunity and instead decided to hire Jara after her business was closing down. That is, Jara's business was closing down. It is a hot ghetto mess, but let's get into it. And by the way, I'm not saying discussing failure is in itself inappropriate. And in fact, I don't think Jara would say anything negative about Emma. I mean, that's her boss currently, so I doubt she would say anything negative about Emma. But there is a framing of this, and I looked through Emma's entire channel and video to find who else, maybe a white person whose business failed somewhere that she interviewed without the bounce back, kind of. And I could not find it. I'm not saying it's not there. I've watched hours upon hours upon hours of her videos, and everyone that sort of failed bounced back. From what I can tell, Jara is the first person, the Black woman, used kind of as the face of failure. I do not like that. And I do feel the need to repeat myself that this part of the video is speculative, and I want you to take this section with a grain of salt. I do feel like this is an attacking on a specific kind of Black woman and a lecturing in a way that I find deeply problematic. And so because of that, I'm saying it's speculative. This is my feelings based on the interview I'm watching. And also, as the Christians would say, I feel called to include this section of the video. So I'm going to do it. Point number one, first issue out of the way. I think that having this dark-skinned Black woman as the face of failure is not just intentional in a negative way. I think it is malicious. I am disgusted by it. And my disdain not only stems from this interview in a vacuum, but from the fact that they've had Amy Cole's CEO, Jara, and Emma has had previous interactions, and this is what Emma had to say about Jara at the time.
Best in Amy Cole from the beginning. And I turned it down. I wasn't interested.
Why?
For a myriad of reasons. I don't tend to invest in first-time founders unless I think there's something extraordinary about that founder and about that proposition. To me, I didn't see that. I was like, it's okay. But I was like, it's going to come and go. That's how I felt. So that wasn't an opportunity that I wanted to invest in at the time. But I kept my eye on it.
When I'm talking about mentorship and Emma being Jara's mentor, not only did she hire Jara to come work for her and the Kardashians, which I think is of particular interest to anyone, there is this mentorship that comes from Emma where she is helping Jara wind down Jara's business. That's Amicole. And she's not investing in Amicole. She's not helping Amicole. She's not trying to build Amicole. She's helping this Black woman wind her business down, that is Amicole, and then taking her onto the Kardashian brand for her, Jara, to help build the Kardashian and the Emma Grede brand. And I do find this deeply problematic. And if you are saying, Themis, you're reading too much into it, I don't think I am. The reason I don't think I am is that I'm not looking at this interview in a vacuum. In the initial stages of Amicole, when Jara was out looking for VC, venture capital, when she's looking for investors to come and inject money into her business so that she can do what she needs to have the business up and running, she actually went to Emma Grede. Emma Grede turned her down. And if all we understood was that Emma Grede turned her down, that would not be controversial in the least bit. What is, however, controversial is what Emma would go on podcasts and say when asked about Amicole. And she's not going to just talk about Amicole, the business. She's going to talk about Jara, the individual.
From the beginning. And I turned it down. I wasn't interested. Why? For a myriad of reasons. I don't tend to invest in first-time founders unless I think there's something extraordinary about that founder and about that proposition. To me, I didn't see that. I was like, it's okay. But I was like, it's going to come and go. That's how I felt.
Please tell me you find that problematic. Please tell me you find that problematic. Emma, in her discussion and in her answer, is not just critiquing Jara's offering. She's not just critiquing the beauty brand. She's critiquing the individual. She's critiquing Jara herself. She went out of her way, I believe, to humiliate the founder in her response. It is insane to me for you to have said that there was nothing extraordinary about the individual. Say there's not... You can say that the makeup, the offering was not extraordinary, and so you didn't want to invest in something that is not extraordinary or innovative or whatever, right? Fine. But then to say the founder, the individual, the person isn't extraordinary, and then go and hire her, and person you believe not to be extraordinary, to come be the VP in your company with the Kardashian, oh, you got me all the way messed up. You got me all the way messed up. I find this to be a problem. And no, I do not believe she's just trying to help this woman out whose business is failing, so she gives her a job. No, this feels specific. This feels intentional. This feels like an I told you so, and then to have her on your podcast so you can drag her is also a problem for me. And yes, if I were Jara, I would be absolutely insulted by this. I'm not extraordinary enough for you to invest in, but extraordinary enough for you to hire? Please. What makes this even worse? I noted this because in the interview, and I'll play this part of the interview. I will play this part of the interview. But in the interview with Jara, she says at one point, I'll play it, quote, "I know your audience and I don't even know your product." What? Listen to this and tell me if this is not some white supremacist foolishness. Okay, maybe white supremacist is too far. I just feel this is a problem. Like, you know, those people are like, oh, I can tell that you're going for the urban clientele. Like, what? Listen to it. Listen to it.
Again, in my world, I would have had 20 doors. I know my markets because we had D2C for a year. Atlanta, New York, LA.
I know your markets and
Dallas,
I don't even know your business.
Period, right? So I would have done that. And then I would have actually showed you who I'm.
This is utter disrespect. It is utterly disrespectful. I cannot even begin to explain how deeply concerning I find this very specific statement. If you don't know her product, like, think about this for a second. You're looking at someone and you're talking to someone and you're saying, I don't know your product, but I know your audience. Please get out of my face. Like, please get it. So it's like a singer who comes out and is trying to do music, Normani, for example, and someone is like, oh, you just gonna do R&B, right? Like, wait, who said that? It's not funny, it's just annoying. I'm laughing because I'm annoyed. Like, who said that? Ugh. And she's gonna do this thing where Amy Collet is a business developed by Jara. I'm going to keep repeating that. Jara explained that she had the idea like 7 years before she started building the business, where she did market research. She talked to the right people. When she tested the product, she tested the applicator. She looked into the market again to figure out what was missing and for whom were these things missing and how she could fill the gap in the market for the things that were missing. And before she went out and tried to get a VC or PE investment, she was clear on what her offering was. She was clear on what it is that she wanted to do. She was clear about the formula. She understood in a way that most founders do not understand their products. Let's be very clear. Most of the people, Kardashians, who Emma is working with and for, do not understand what it is that they're selling. So let's not act like a lot of these people Emma works with know fully what they're doing. But Jara seemed to have known what was going on. In fact, she was so clear about it that she explained, Jara, the first VC injection of capital into her company had a tremendous return. It wasn't the VC investment initially, which was, I think, $1 million, right? That was not the issue. It was the second investment where they wanted her to expand too quickly before she had the customer base to expand into physical stores all over America in Sephora. That was where the problem lied. But no. Emma doesn't care nothing about that. She is like, were you ready? But the were you ready is laced with a kind of condescension that does not make sense, particularly if you were paying attention in the interview where Jara is explaining how ready she is to then follow up all of that explanation of market research and her readiness, to follow up all of that with, were you ready? God, please get out of my face. Yes, I was ready. That's not the problem. The problem was when other people started coming in and telling me what to do because I took their money. Not even the first injection of money, but the second. And again, I want to highlight from a purely numeric perspective, from a return on investment perspective, the first VC round of raising money, which was $1 million, she was ready for that. Instead of acknowledging the readiness of Jara, Emma does this very disturbing thing to me in the interview where she suggests that the only reason why Jara even got the money that she received in 2020 in the time of George Floyd was because of the time of George Floyd, and that these companies didn't actually look at the offering from this black woman or black people. They were just kind of handing it out. You know, the way that Republicans talk about DEI is essentially what Emma was implying and outright saying to Jara as to why she got the money and the investment at the time. Now,
So I got a lot of phone calls, and then I went from 150 no's to suddenly like, here's $1 million, take it right now or you're gonna lose it. And you gotta stay ready, okay? And I was ready. So I took that cash.
And let me pause you for 1 second there,
Absolutely.
because I think this is important to contextualize for the audience. We're talking about a moment in time where corporate America sat up and said, if I don't have any Black-owned businesses on my cap table, if I'm a venture capitalist, if I'm in private equity, it was suddenly a problem, whereas it hadn't been before, right? Everyone was going on their merry way, investing in what they know, what they see, who they know.
That's right.
And suddenly there was this, it's problematic if you don't have this. So you collided with a moment in time where these investors suddenly had a newfound interest in Black-owned brands because they had to.
Yep.
Now, the question is here, who exploits who, right? Because I look at that and I go, wait a minute, had I been you, by the way, I would have done exactly the same. But the reason I stopped you at, were you ready? Because I think, you know, luck is where opportunity meets preparation.
That's right.
And I
That's
feel
right.
like you get super prepared and that piece of luck comes and off you go. You're off to the races. But my question to you is, were you ready? Were you ready to take the money, or did you actually look at that and say, this is a moment in time, it's an opportunity, and I'm going to take it while the moment is there?
What a great question.
let's widen the scope a little bit. With less than 3% of VC money going to women, Black women in particular, for business development and general business investment, I can understand the feeling that this might have been the case from Emma. My issue is maybe investigate some more into why you believe that, right? I can understand how you come to that conclusion. Investigate why you believe that, and also think about the fact that you had the opportunity to invest and you didn't. So you are part of the group of venture capitals who do not invest in Black business in that way. Now, I know you are part of the 15 or 13% pledge to get Black people in business to have access to capital. I fully understand that. I read up on it. It is what it is. I think it is insane, though, for you to just outright say the reason Jara, got any investment at the time was because of the George Floyd thing and the Black Lives Matter thing, and therefore she wasn't deserving. And then to imply further that she wasn't ready is insane when she returned this kind of investment in a way that propelled other investors to come back to her and want to invest. And when it was the second round of investment that caused problem in terms of how she decided to distribute her product more broadly, where there was not an audience more broadly for her amicale, for her line. I think that's insane. I actually do find it hugely problematic the way the interview is framed around Jara's failure, as if it wasn't understandable that a person might make certain kinds of mistake and it wasn't in the first sort of capital investment. Now, I'm not saying don't hold her accountable. I'm saying you also failed, Emma, and you should understand the failure and the shock faces you made throughout the entire interview about how Jara could do this or why she could have done that and why didn't you do this. It's kind of insane when you also failed at some point. And let's be very clear, I don't want to go to Good American. I don't want to be messy, but let's do Skims. Skims has scored worse than Shein and some of them fast fashion on the accountability report. Right? Was it last year? Yeah, I think it was for 2024 rather. And so let me pull up this, y'all, and tell me where on there you see Skims. The visibility of skims have gone absolutely down. And I'm not saying it's going to fail. They're trying to have their IPO, right? The initial public offering. And I don't know where that's going to go. And the amount of VC investment in skims where a lot of people have estimated that eventually the billion-dollar valuation might be inflated. And we know that family and them inflated net worth. We know good America quality has dropped by pretty much everyone who is reviewing it online for those who are still reviewing it online. So let's be very clear that I don't want Emma to fail, and this is not an attack on Emma particularly, but I do not like the way she framed Jara as a failure because she was ill-prepared when most of these people are ill-prepared and you could have helped her build her business better. Instead, you are helping her close down her business so she can come work for you. That is my opinion, and please, Jara, I do not want to hear nothing from you. I do not. I understand that you're under contract and that's your boss, but that's your boss, not mine. I don't want to hear it. Good on you, girl, period. You love, she's been a mentor for you, blah, 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 more blah. Do not care. As if she gonna watch it and respond. Now, when I talk about the second injection of capital for Amicole, one of the things that we talked about was how many doors she was in for Sephora. And it was a lot of doors. She was everywhere, girl, but she didn't have the audience. She did not have the customer base to be in all these stores. So obviously this is not going to do well. And when you are in a bunch of Sephora stores, right? You are going to want to be in the kind of premier aisles where people see your product and want to buy your product and have a fancy display. But the more stores you go into, the less fund you have to make that happen for each store, as opposed to like focusing on your niche area and then building out slowly, right? Like I think Amicole could have succeeded had it been a slower growth as opposed to this expansive juggernaut. Because I think she was trying her best to do what is right. And the question you could ask here is, why did you do that? Why were you in so many stores? Why didn't you have an online store and then work with, I don't know, 5 Sephoras that are in very specific areas that are very high traffic for the people that are your customers, and then build out to 10, 15, 20, and then move forward like that. Part of that is that a lot of VC do not want that. They want their money back right now. They need to see a profit immediately, right? So there is that happening. But the question could be about why. Why did you not move slowly? Why did you move so quickly? Right? Instead of that question, Emma is going to look at this woman and ask, do you think it was ego? Do you think it was ego why you were in so many stores?
With a pair of good American. They weren't looking for my brand. They were happening upon our brand. But right from the outset, you know, Nordstrom has 168 doors in this country. We're like, we want you in 50 doors. And I said, I can't go into 50 doors.
Good for you.
I can't.
How'd you know
that's not
that?
gonna. Well, and that's the thing. I knew because, let's be honest, I never run an apparel company before. 50 sounded like too much. And so I asked you the question because you launched in
250 doors.
I mean, Chara, like, why didn't you say no? Like, I want to understand.
That's a great question.
Was it because there's a little part of this that goes, is there an ego thing here? Because you're like, it sounds, I'm in 200 doors of Sephora. Was there nothing in you that went, you know what, I can't go from where I am today to 200 doors? And were there no one around you that said, listen, girl, you might need to walk before you can run here?
Oh, I love that question. And one thing I will say, every founder is going to say this, but I don't think ego is at play. I just needed to know what to do to get to the next step. Tell me what to do. And the conversation is you need to get into the full doors. Because Sephora came to me. I will give Sephora their credit. Let's start on .com. I went to the investors. They said, let's start on .com. They're like, no, doors.
Like, why not ask why? Like, why are you making a suggestion? Emma pissed me off. You know what? I'm going to do a video myself on Amicole, and not the business side, but that closing letter. I just want you all to feel what I felt, because I actually almost cried reading her letter, telling the world that she's closing her business after everyone expected her to be the kind of next big thing in beauty. And let me close this section by saying, there was a point at which Jara was saying that she was the provider, the breadwinner for her family, and I almost expected Emma to say, well, you should have chose better in terms of who you decide to have children with. I promise I don't know why I thought she was going to say she didn't, but I just assumed she would have. And for that, I wouldn't have even responded, like, period. I do believe Emma is this powerful, strong person that she portrays herself to be. I think she walks into a room and she owns that room. And I actually do appreciate that about her. I seen her talk to other black women, dark-skinned black women, and treat them well and have a ton of respect for them. So I don't know that I would make any larger statement about Emma from this very specific interview. And I really enjoyed her being on the Joe Budden podcast, which, God help me, but I did, because she handled herself well in an environment that is not always conducive to a woman speaking up. One of the men on the Joe Budden podcast, there are too many of them to count, and this came through in her book also, but one of the men on the Joe Budden podcast says, oh, you're one of those girls that hang with a lot of men. I can see you hang with, because she's successful and assertive. And she was like, no, I'm a girl's girl. I put men in their place. She said, no, I'm a girl's girl. I put men in their compartments. And I was shook. Now, obviously, I can't play the Joe Budden Experience or podcast. You're going to have to trust me, bro, on this one. And she said this in a room filled with men. And it, for me, reaffirms something that I truly believe. I believe Emma believes she is who she says she is. I believe she shows up exactly how she says she's going to show up, and I can respect her deeply for that. It does not feel like she just bends to the will of the people around her. Or she went into the Joe Budden podcast, saw a bunch of degenerates and said, girl, please, ain't nobody got time for this. I am not looking for any of y'all's approval. And even to that, I say period. I want to add also that beauty as currency, proximity to whiteness as currency, is not something that can be undermined. And I don't think Emma leans fully into this in a part of her explanation. Now, she wrote about it in her book, and she talks about the fact that she understands that she's beautiful, but she does not get into detail. In fact, she says something to the effect in her book that one of the least interesting thing about her is how she looks. Now, girl, no. It might be the least interesting thing to you, and she does go on to say that for other women it's the same, but girl, absolutely not. Would you be able to marry your boss, a multimillionaire who would then invest millions of dollars into your business, if you did not look the way you look? I'm not saying you couldn't or it's not possible, but I am going to probably lean to it's not likely. You know what I mean? Like, there is a story that Emma tells where she leaves one company to go work for her now husband, and her husband is going to take on this company because they're going to sue her for this non-compete clause that she had with her initial company. And her husband, before she was married, it was not clear in the book that she was married at this time. So she is an employee or a person who is going to create another company, and your boss is legally willing to fight your previous company to keep you. Now, again, I'm not saying she's not great at her job, whatever it was, but come on, girl. She gonna do a video with her husband, and they're gonna talk about, hey, what did you think when you first met me? And was it love at first sight? Her husband is going to say no, but I thought you were cute. And they're like giggling, and I'm sitting there like, please, we know what this is. And I'm not saying there's anything bad or wrong happening. Some people might, but I'm not saying it here. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, actually. I'm not saying anything. I'm not making a moral judgment on sleeping with your boss and marrying your boss. I'm not saying none of that. But I do find it odd that you're writing a book about building and navigating and working hard and getting to the top, and that is excluded. Well, I guess it's not, because you did say work from home, it's hard because you can flirt the same way you would online as you would in person. So maybe you were like telling, okay, girl, period. Anyway, let's just let's just move. There's a ton of contradictions in the book. I won't go through all of them because I don't think that's fair. I think that when we're talking, there's a lot of stream of consciousness. I think the book was well written in terms of the actual writing style. It felt like I could hear Emma talking to me through the book. So I do appreciate that. It was very easy to read. It took me like a couple of days to finish the book. However, the contradictions are insane to me. So this is what she says all the time about gratitude. And actually, I'm only going to do gratitude because this video is way too long. And this feels like someone who understands that the world happens outside of them and that you are not completely in control of what happens outside, and serendipity can and does play a large role in getting from point A to point B, being successful, right? This is good. But y'all remember how she wrote about gratitude in her book? If you don't remember, let me put it up here for you. She said, girl, please, I'm not grateful. I built this brick by brick. Ain't nobody gonna make me grateful. I'm not grateful. I am that girl, period. That's what she said. So I think as a kind of underline, there is something very discomforting about this kind of approach to gratitude. And it also, the reason I use gratitude for this portion is that it feels antithetical to the entire mantra of you should be grateful as part of her brand. Like, she's telling people they should be grateful and that she's grateful, and she has a gratitude journal, I think. So maybe it was an off day when she was doing this interview, but then why would you include it in the book as if it's a cornerstone of how you operate when it comes to gratitude? That felt weird to me. She also said she hates the fact that people think she's self-made, but then she leans heavily into it. As a part of her intro, everywhere she's like one of the richest self-made women, black woman in America. And so it's like, I mean, the self-made word is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Because again, your husband, and I want to say that I think her husband is the lucky one. Like, I'm going to play this video, and then I'm going to agree with this video. All right, here.
Emma Grede and Alex Cooper's husbands have in common: they both married well. Women are always centered in the conversation of marrying well, but no one talks about how men want to marry well too. The reason why the girls were screaming, "A man will not give you no security," a few months ago is because they won't. These men want to marry well too. Barack Obama married well. Bill Clinton married well. JD Vance married well. Mark Zuckerberg married well. Bill Gates married well. They all married well. Okay, Emma Grede's husband is an investor. He married the best investment he has ever made in his entire life. And okay, for argument's sake, let's say he gave her $1. She made him $1 billion. Alex Cooper's husband, a media executive. He married a woman who closed one of the biggest media deals of its kind of all time. You think these men married these women because they're pretty? Because they go to Pilates? Because they can flip their hair? No, they didn't. People always fail to realize what these women bring to the table. How these women elevate these men to levels they might never have access to without them. How these women carry status and leverage and respect that these men simply will not get on their own. Men want to marry well too. And a lot of the time, these women are their best bet.
And what I will say here is that Emma does elevate her husband and herself. And I don't want to diminish even though it is important to point out who she's married to, that she, being a part of her husband's life, has added tremendously to both his wealth and her own. And to pretend that she's just some kind of leash or like a random trad wife who is at home, not adding in terms of financially, because trad wives do add if you're home taking care of your kids and making sure that he has somewhere to stay and all of that. She's been a partner in their relationship, and she has double, triple the kinds of investment into her financially that her husband made. And he's a lucky one too. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm going to try to quickly wrap this up because I don't want to overstate my points here. I finished this book not hating. I do have some respect for her. I don't think that you become an Emma Grede without believing and investing in capitalism in the way that she does. I think she is beautiful, which allows her kind of access that other people won't have, and beautiful in a very specific way that has proximity enough to white without being white. And while she does not apologize for her beauty, I think she downplays its role in her access in a way that I find deeply detrimental, particularly to women looking up to her. Emma's approach in this book, where she is trying to be what I consider to be feminist, is not real, so to speak. I think that she spends too much of the time trying to justify her truth to herself. I think she elevates manhood in particular as the cornerstone for business and business dealing. She justifies her decisions by asking questions like, what would a man do? And the best way to approach business in a lot of ways for Emma, as she articulates in this book, is what men do, right? And it's not innovative in the way that she's coming with new ideas. She's using and replicating that which men have done, which I find odd. So the question becomes, is equality therefore becoming more and more like men? Is the benchmark for women empowerment getting to treat and mistreat people the way men do? Like that feels weird to me. That so much of her decision making and the things that she do is justified by saying, well, men. I find that hugely intolerable. I think one of the things that I wanted to think about is when we get more women leaders, will they just sort of, I don't know, reinforce patriarchy and capitalism as kind of necessary parts of wealth building? Like, I don't know. Will you just join the boys club, essentially? I was hoping that women leadership would go beyond what men are doing, honestly. And I think I started with this. I'm hoping for a more expansive way that women will lead and take charge of the world and business in ways that maybe I, as a man, can't even think of or haven't even thought of or haven't done yet. Not just copy that which men have been doing. Because ultimately, and let me just say this, recreating a failing paradigm does not seem like the right thing to do. Like, it's weird. And I do think separately, I think as class consciousness continues to take hold in the United States, I think the poor, myself included in this, are less interested in being lectured to by the wealthy about how much more we need to work and how harder we need to work. I think I'm kind of over that. And I do think Emma Grede strikes at the core of this fundamental truth, or feeling rather, around the wealthy lecturing the poor that we're not doing enough. And when the poor have nothing left to eat, hungry mouth watering might turn to the rich. And Emma, girl, you're one of them. It is what it is. You're one of them. And so I would be very careful about the lecturing tone and approach to telling us that we are just not working hard enough. And so please do better, essentially. And while the book was well written, substantively, it fails to meet the basic threshold for new ideas that's my review. Now, this section, I'm usually doing some kind of comments from last week, but I won't do that. I want to talk openly, hopefully, about something that I find interesting. I find it interesting that Emma Grede reminds me psychologically, specifically the kind of type A personality where you make a plan, you go for the plan, and you work regardless of what is happening around you, building a kind of tunnel vision to get to where you want to go. I find this very endearing. I know a lot of people don't, and capitalism wants you to engage this way because you see failure as your own problem, you see success as your own, and you kind of engage that way in your own life, right? I think my issue becomes when you take that as truth and then you start spreading it more generally. And that kind of preaching, right, completely ignores a separate analysis around the system and deconstructing systems that require there to be a permanent underclass to do certain kinds of work. And with the inclusion of AI, with a lot of people losing their jobs, with all the uncertainty and discomfort in the current state, it is odd to be telling people that what they need to do is work harder, right? And so that for me is a discomfort. I have a second channel. It is called Debunking Excellence. And I have been deeply afraid of posting on that channel. The reason being, and I've had it for years now at this point, where people were talking about how I did well in school and what did I do and how did I get from point A to point B. And I wanted to talk about my own experience, but I haven't found a way to talk about what I did, acknowledging my privilege, obviously, but in a way that doesn't sound like I'm telling other people that they're not doing enough. Because to tell someone that they're not doing enough, you have to first know how much they are doing. And we don't know that for enough people to be speaking as generally as we're doing and as this book is deciding to do. Now, the esoteric manifestation goal, pulling things into your vortex, that comes from the school of Oprah Winfrey and all of the law of attraction books. I think they're useful to people who need that to feel comfortable, and I think they're useful for psychological coaxing into getting what you want done and for that internal locus of control to kick in. But with so much power, it is absolutely insane that Emma is not speaking to other people with power about how they can be helpful in creating a world that is more fair and care more about the people who work for them, those who are capitalists. So that's my take. Let me know what your take. It is a Tuesday morning take, and I will talk to you later. I do know I say Tuesday morning take, and I don't know when this is going to come out because this has been 2 Tuesdays gone, but finally I'm done recording. Anyway, that's that on that. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful time. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Also, if you disagree with me, let me know. It's a conversation. Not that big a deal. All right. Bye.